Alright, so this is part 1 of the pseudocode solutions for P2, and we are looking at the sum of 2024 9618 variant 21. Unless stated otherwise, I will be covering only solutions for the 21 variant, because that is the one for our particular region. But of course, maybe later on we'll start covering other variants, but for the most part there's really not much difference between these variants. It's more or less the same thing, but it's just that the questions will be shuffled, as it were. Alright, so the first question that requires us to implement in a solution using pseudocode is actually number 4 right here. So let's actually go ahead and see what we are required to do here. So it says here that a global 1D array data contains 100 elements of type integer. A function check will total the element values in odd index positions or locations rather. That is 135 all the way up to 99. Then it's also going to find the total, or rather the elements, the total number of elements that sit in the even index locations. Then it's also going to return one of 3 strings, depending on the situation, whether the number of odd elements is more or the number of even elements is less, or if they are both equal. Then we are to write a pseudocode for the function check. So let's actually go ahead and look at the implementation that I have going on here. So this part, line 1, we have that comment going on. This part is not really required because we've been told that this is a global 1D array called data, but I just declared the array here so that we can have the entire context of the question. It's much easier to visualize that way. So we are using comments just to describe or to document what we're trying to achieve. So here we are going to write the function that's going to check odd and even indexed elements and return a string based on the comparison. So if you check here, the function header, if you look at the question here, our function doesn't take any parameters because we aren't told anything about parameters. So after the function keyword, we're just going to have the name of our function or the identifier for our function and the return type. And we are told that it's going to return one of 3 strings, is it? So our return type is going to be string. That's what we have going on line 6 there. Then we would also want to have somewhere where we are going to hold the total number of odd elements, the total number of even elements, as well as an index, so that we can iterate through the array. So we are declaring those 3 variables on line 7, and they are all of type integer. Then on line 8 and 9, we are initializing the values for the odd and even elements, because before we iterate through the array, we do not have any elements in both variables. So that's why we are initializing both of them to 0. So in this case, we were told that this array is going to hold 100 elements. So we already know how many times we are going to have to iterate. So it makes sense to make use of a count control loop because we already know the number beforehand. We know that we are going to iterate 100 times. So that's why we are using a for loop right here. So we are initializing the for loop on line 13 with a range of 1 to 100. Then inside now we need to make a decision whether the current element is in an even location or it is in an odd location. So the way to do that is to make use of the mode function. If you remember the mode function, the way it works is that it's going to take 2 values on either side, right? So you have the index as the first value and the value that you want to make use of on the other side, as it were. Then you are going to check a relation, or rather for equality. In this case, we want to see if we divide the current index by 2, if it gives us a value of 0. So you remember that all even numbers, if you divide them by 2, they give a remainder of 0. So on line 14, we are just checking to see if the current index element, index position rather, is even. That's what we are doing on line 14 there. Then if that's the case, we are going to proceed and increment, and we are going to find the total, right? So remember, total is currently 0, is it? So we're now saying 0 plus whatever value is at the current even index location, right? So we add that to the even elements right there. And I think maybe I think it's fine. I was going to say that I would have come up with a better identifier name, but I think even element is still fine. Otherwise, if this condition is false, then it's going to run this else statement. So basically, we are going to take the current value of 0 and add whatever number that is at this specific location in our array. So this loop is going to iterate 100 times, right? It's going to iterate 100 times and give us the total for even elements and the total for odd elements. Then the last part of the question requires us to return one of 3 strings depending on the situation. Again, we need to make a decision to see if the odd elements are more than the even elements, or if they are both equal. So we are making use of nested if statements, right? So the way we are doing it is to first check for equality, right? Because if you were to visualize what we are doing right here, we first want to check if the odd elements give us a higher value, if the even elements give us a higher value, or if they are both the same. So it makes sense to start by checking if they are the same, then we simply return the string same. Otherwise, we have 2 other conditions that we need to test. So it makes sense now to have this aspect of checking whether the odd elements are greater or the even elements are greater in this else clause right here. So that's why you see we have this if statement going on here. So else we want to check if odd elements are greater than even elements. So if that's the case, it means it's going to return odd. Otherwise, it's going to return even right there. So you go ahead and you conclude your if statements, and you also conclude your function by using the end function keyword. So yeah, I think that's just about it for this solution, and as well for the question. It's worth 6 marks. This is quite a lot, considering that some questions have 5 marks, 3 marks, is it? So you always want to make sure that you nail these questions that require you to implement solutions in pseudocode. Otherwise, I think that's just about it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.